Chicago's in the eye of the storm, and these three bombshells are going to blow up your perception of the Bears. First, radical decisions in the final cut could wipe out a future All-Pro on the offensive line, the very one supposed to protect. Our QB, second, a black hole in protection threatens to turn Caleb Williams into a statistic against the worst pass rushers in the NFL. Third, leaked documents prove that the chaos of 2024 was inevitable, and executives already knew our QB was doomed from the draft. This isn't theory, Bears Nation. These are facts explaining why every second of this preseason might be the last gasp before total collapse. Are you going to risk missing the details that connect these stories? Smash that like now. Cheer until unity bleeds and subscribe before the video goes live, because when Minnesota arrives, only the prepared will survive. The most controversial Bears roster projection just dropped, and I gotta tell you, the decisions being made will shock you. Ben Johnson and his coaching staff are facing brutal dilemmas to cut the roster to 53 players. And the most controversial case involves Kieran Amegadjie, our third-round draft pick in 2024. Remember how Amegadjie had a terrible rookie season, thrown into the fire way too early after recovering from a serious injury. Well, 2025 was supposed to be his redemption, but situation is more complicated than a maze. Here's the scoop. At the start of training camp, Amegadjie was splitting first-team left tackle reps with second-round rookie Ozzie Trapilo, while Braxton Jones recovered from an ankle fracture. The expectation was for him to finally show why Chicago invested a third-round pick in him. But here's the plot twist nobody anticipated. When Amegadjie suffered a minor leg injury, missing valuable reps, Theo Benedette, a second-year undrafted, seized the opportunity like the last Coke in the desert and jumped ahead of him in the hierarchy. Ben Johnson was honest about the situation. He was missing some quality reps there. He was also improving. That's the shame. He was improving. We were very pleased with the trajectory he was on. It breaks my heart, Bears Nation. Imagine having a young talent finally finding their rhythm, showing real progress, and then a minor injury destroys all their momentum. Now, Amegadjie finds himself in the fourth position among tackles, behind Jones, Trapilo, Benedette, and possibly even others. The question keeping me up at night is, will Chicago move Amegadjie to guard this week to show his versatility? Because I believe that giving up on him now would be a colossal mistake. This kid has the physique, the talent, but needs time and opportunity. Think about it. If 4 tackles are ahead of him in the hierarchy, how will he get enough reps to develop? And if we cut him now, what message does that send to other young talents in the organization? And it's not just Amegadjie. Ian Wheeler is causing another impossible dilemma. For the second consecutive year, he's impressing in the preseason like a seasoned veteran, coming off a 2-touchdown performance against Buffalo that sent Soldier Field into a frenzy. But here's the problem. Our running backs room is more crowded than the Chicago L at rush hour. We've got DeAndre Swift as our undisputed RB1, Kyle Monaghan as our future hope, Rashawn Johnson when healthy, and Travis Homer bringing special teams experience. Wheeler is not just a feel-good story. This guy can really play. He has a unique combination of power and second-gear speed that few running backs possess. And you know what impresses me the most? His ability to find gaps behind second and third-string offensive lines. The problem is that if we waive Wheeler, he could be claimed by another team immediately and we wouldn't be able to include him on the practice squad. This means losing a real talent that could help us if any of our starting RBs get injured. That's why in the projection, it was decided to keep 5 running backs on the roster: Swift, Monaghan, Johnson, Homer, and Wheeler. It may seem like a lot, but with the physics of modern NFL, you never have too many running backs. The linebacker situation is also heating up like a poorly attended barbecue. With Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards as our undisputed starters, Noah Sewell has impressed enough to secure the Sam linebacker spot and seems established. But what about Ruben Hippolyte II, our 4th-round rookie? He's starting his career as a backup, making sense considering the coaching staff has been training him at multiple positions. His speed will be a valuable addition to special teams, and I can see Sewell also contributing there. The big question is Amen Ogbongbemiga, who, Played only 42 combined snaps between defense and special teams this preseason. Is it worth keeping a fifth linebacker on the roster just to have an extra body on special teams? Or would this spot be better used keeping a player like Amagaji or Wheeler? Dennis Allen hasn't fully shown what kind of scheme he'll run, but considering how he values his unit's talents, the defense will likely play a lot with 5 or 6 defensive backs. This means that most of the time, we'll have only 2 linebackers on the field. For me, it was a relatively easy decision in the projection. Keep Edmonds, Edwards, Sewell, and Hippolyte on the active roster, and carry a 5th linebacker on the practice squad to be called if needed. This player could be Ogbongbemiga, or even the undrafted rookie Power Echoes. And y'all want to talk about chaos? Let's talk about the cornerbacks room. As soon as we discovered Jaylon Johnson would miss most of training camp due to a leg injury, we knew there'd be a competition hotter than a presidential election for the cornerback position. The player who really seized the opportunity like a true professional was Nahshon Wright, with Tyreek Stevenson close behind. The CB2 position will easily be between these two players, and honestly, the coaching staff might even rotate them depending on specific matchups against Johnson. Another player who was really impressing in training camp and preseason was Terrell Smith, showing solid coverage and natural instincts for the position. But then came the tragedy. He unfortunately suffered a non-contact knee injury against Buffalo and was carted off the field, breaking everyone's heart. We still haven't received an official update on the severity of Smith's injury, but Johnson's comments made the situation seem serious, potentially even season-ending. This is devastating for a young player who was just beginning to show his potential. Smith's injury opens the door for players like Nick McLeod to secure a definitive spot on the roster. McLeod has been cross-training both outside and in the slot, and the numbers don't lie. He allowed only 1 reception and 19 snaps of coverage in 2 games. These are elite numbers, folks. Josh Blackwell also emerges as a safe option as a backup nickel, especially considering he brings valuable return experience in special teams. In a league where versatility is king, players like Blackwell, who can contribute in multiple phases of the game, are incredibly valuable. The real question, keeping everyone up at night, is what will happen to Zal Frazier, our 5th-round rookie. Frazier is a player that defensive coach Al Harris loved coming out of college and showed real promise during spring activities. However, he hasn't shown up since spring for undisclosed personal reasons. If he doesn't return by the time the final cuts are made, the team will likely place him on the reserve list for not reporting, securing a spot on the roster while avoiding losing him entirely to another team. And if you thought the roster issues were worrying, wait until you hear what I found out about our offensive line. It's absolutely devastating. There's a fundamental issue threatening our entire start of the season, and it's got me more nervous than a Bears fan in a playoff game. Do you know who we start the season against? Minnesota Vikings in week 1 and then the Detroit Lions in week 2? What a twist of fate. These are exactly the 2 teams that blitzed the most in the NFL last season, according to Statehead and Pro Football Reference data. And what's our situation at left tackle, the most important position to protect our left-handed quarterback? Theo Benedette, an undrafted second-year rookie who barely has experience against starting NFL edge rushers. It's like sending a 16-year-old to drive a Ferrari in Formula 1. I ask you, how do you think this will end? Benedette may have good technique in practice and against backups, but he's never faced real pass rushers in games that actually matter. The difference between facing a backup in preseason and facing a Danielle Hunter or Aiden Hutchinson in official games is like the difference between swimming in a pool and surfing a stormy ocean. Ben Johnson was brutally honest about this reality. After the game, when you play tackle against some of these pass rushers in this league, you will lose a rep or 2. There are 2 things. One is how you recover when that happens. The other, how to slow down not to lose too fast. If we're going to lose, we want to lose slow. This statement gives me chills, Bears Nation. Johnson is basically admitting that our left tackle will get beaten, and our best hope is that he gets beaten slow enough for Caleb Williams to get rid of the ball. The situation becomes even more complicated when considering Braxton Jones, who was supposedly our established starter. He's recovering from an ankle fracture that kept him out during crucial parts of training camp. When so much is said about how much Jones had to overcome with a broken ankle, it worries me even more. The injury was real and significant, but if it's still limiting Jones in any way, physically or mentally, we'll be in serious trouble protecting Williams. Jones has experience, which is undeniably valuable. As Johnson mentioned, experience makes a tackle more likely to lose slower or win. But experience means nothing if the player isn't 100% physically or is hesitating out of fear of aggravating the injury. The truth is we need Jones healthy and confident to have any chance against Brian Flores and Aaron Glenn in the first weeks. If he's still dealing with physical or mental limitations from the injury, we're practically handing Williams over to the Wolves. And it doesn't stop there. Our situation becomes exponentially worse when looking at our running backs' pass blocking. In 2 preseason games, they've been absolutely terrible in this area, and it should sound all the alarm bells at Hallis Hall. DeAndre Swift, our RB1, has never been known as a good pass blocker throughout his career. He has other valuable skills: speed, hands, vision, but pass blocking is definitely not on the list. And considering we'll face defenses that thrive on blitz, this is a huge problem. Kyle Monangai, our young talent, is still learning the more technical aspects of the professional game, including blitz recognition and pass blocking techniques. Asking a rookie to block veteran NFL edge rushers in his first season is a recipe for disaster. Rashawn Johnson would be our best and perhaps only reliable option for pass blocking. He has shown competence in this area before and has the necessary physique and mindset. But guess what? He's dealing with health issues again, and no one is sure if he'll be fully available for the season opener. Travis Homer is familiar with special teams coordinator Richard Hightower and could contribute to pass blocking, but he's never been a primary solution in this area. It's more of a patch than a real solution. Here's where the situation gets interesting and at the same time terrifying. Ben Johnson has shown exceptional skill in handling Brian Flores' aggressive attack in recent seasons when he was in Detroit. The Lions won their last 5 games against Minnesota with an impressive average of 31.2 points per game, never scoring less than 30. This proves Johnson knows how to neutralize Flores' blitzes. He has the tactical knowledge and necessary experience. But here's the fundamental problem. In Detroit, Johnson had the right tools to execute his game plan. In Detroit, he had an established and experienced offensive line. He had reliable running backs in pass blocking. He had a quarterback in Jared Goff, who, despite his limitations, knew the system perfectly and could make rapid decisions. Now Johnson is coming to Chicago without any of those advantages he had in Detroit. Our offensive line is vulnerable in the most critical position. Our running backs can't block passes reliably. And our quarterback, though talented, is still learning the system and recovering from a traumatic rookie season. I believe the only realistic solution is to do exactly what we saw Williams execute against Buffalo, getting the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible through short passes, screens, and perfectly timed plays. Against Buffalo, we saw flashes of what might be possible. Williams released the ball quickly and decisively in 2 specific plays that were exactly what we need to see. But here's the critical question. Can he reproduce that performance consistently against starting defenses that know NFL tendencies and have weeks to prepare specifically for our attack? The difference between executing a quick passing game against Buffalo's backups in preseason and doing the same against Minnesota's starting defense in a season opener is monumental. It's one thing to recognize blitzes when you're relaxed in preseason. It's an entirely different thing to do it when 70,000 people are screaming and your season is on the line. One option Johnson may consider is forming more frequently, with 12 personnel, including an extra tight end who can help in pass blocking. Cole Kmet is solid in this area, and if we have another reliable tight end, this could give Williams the extra protection he needs. The problem is, this would limit our offensive options and could telegraph our intentions to experienced defenses like Minnesota and Detroit. Flores and Glenn are too smart not to recognize these formations and adjust accordingly. Another possibility would be to use more frequently multiple running backs per formation, putting 2 RBs in the backfield to have extra protection. But Again, this requires our running backs to be competent in pass blocking, which we simply don't have enough evidence to trust. All this places immense pressure on the shoulders of Caleb Williams. He needs to make faster progressions, make smarter decisions, and execute with surgical precision, all while facing constant pressure from two of the best pass rush defenses in the league. If our pass protection fails in the first weeks, as I fear it might, Williams could easily regress to the problematic habits we saw in 2024. Holding the ball too long, trying to make impossible plays, taking unnecessary sacks. And if this happens, we could be looking at an exact repeat of last season, where Williams endured 68 sacks and the confidence of everyone was shattered. The difference is that this time, with higher expectations and Ben Johnson in command, failure will be even more devastating for our franchise. But the most explosive news just broke out, and it's going to shake Hallas Hall like a magnitude 9 earthquake. Shocking revelations about what NFL executives really thought about Caleb Williams during his rookie season are coming to light, and I guarantee you won't believe the depth of what I discovered. An anonymous AFC executive revealed to ESPN in devastating detail exactly why he always believed Williams would struggle enormously as a rookie. And the explanation is more brutal than a Ray Lewis hit. Williams' tendency to make plays based on raw talent instead of playing on schedule and within a structure of an offense raised concerns about his ability to succeed in the first year. But wait, there's more. The same executive was even more direct and cutting. Simply thought he never saw the field well, and it was apparent. Folks, this is absolutely devastating coming from someone who works professionally evaluating talents. In the NFL, this critique goes straight to the heart of what it means to be a quarterback in modern NFL. It's not enough to have a strong arm, mobility, or charisma. You need to process information quickly, make correct pre-snap and post-snap readings, and execute within the offensive structure. What this executive is basically saying is that Williams, during his rookie season, was playing college football at a professional level. At USC, he could rely on raw talent to overcome inferior defenses. In the NFL, against experienced defensive coordinators and elite athletes, this approach is a guaranteed recipe for failure. And here's the part that hurts every Bears fan's heart. While Williams took 68 sacks, setting a league-low record for rookies, and endured a humiliating 10-game losing streak, Jayden Daniels was doing exactly the opposite in Washington. Daniels not only led the Commanders to the NFC Championship game, something that seemed impossible at the start of the season, but was also unanimously elected Offensive Rookie of the Year. And you know what's more painful? League executives, coaches, and scouts interviewed by ESPN earlier this summer ranked Daniels as the 5th best quarterback in the NFL for the 2025 season. Let that sink in for a second. Jayden Daniels, who was picked one position after Williams, is already considered a top 5 quarterback in the league after just one season. Meanwhile, where is Williams on his list? He doesn't even appear in the top 15. The difference between the two rookies was glaring. While Williams struggled to grasp basic concepts of defense reading and protection, Daniels was executing a complex offense with the precision of a 10-year veteran. While Williams was being chased by pass rushers due to the slowness of his decisions, Daniels was releasing the ball quickly and making smart decisions. But the most explosive bomb is related to what really happened behind the scenes of the 2024 draft. Apparently, Williams and his family actively explored ways to prevent Chicago from drafting him with the first overall pick. A source with direct knowledge of the process revealed details that explain much of what we saw during the 2024 season. The source said, Williams' mission to uncover facts about his new team left him disappointed with Waldron, who was the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator before joining Chicago in January 2024. Williams' main concerns, according to the source, included fundamental issues, whether personalities would fit and how Waldron would use him. This means our number 1 quarterback draft pick was already arriving in Chicago with serious doubts about the offensive system and compatibility with his coordinator. I tell you, this explains everything about what we saw in 2024. If Williams already arrived doubting Waldron and questioning how he'd be used, how do you think that it affected his ability to learn the system? How did it impact his confidence during tough moments? Imagine starting a new job, already distrusting your direct boss and questioning whether you were hired for the right role. That's exactly what happened with Williams in Chicago. This revelation sheds a completely new light on all the problems we saw in 2024. Williams' hesitation to make quick decisions, his tendency to hold the ball too long, his apparent reluctance to trust his receiver's routes. All of this might have roots in this initial lack of trust in the offensive system. When a quarterback doesn't fully trust his offensive coordinator, he starts questioning every play call. Instead of executing confidently, he hesitates, second guesses, and tries to make adjustments that end up complicating matters even more. This would explain why Williams often seemed to be playing a different game from the rest of his offense. While his receivers were running precise routes based on Waldron's system timing, Williams was trying to create something out of structure, relying on individual talent instead of collective execution. Shane Waldron came to Chicago with solid credentials after working as an offensive coordinator in Seattle, where he had developed an efficient offense with Russell Wilson. But what's becoming clear now is that there was a fundamental mismatch of styles and personalities between Waldron and Williams. Waldron came from working with Wilson, a veteran quarterback who perfectly understood how to execute within the structure of a system. Wilson could make improvisational plays when necessary, but his foundation was always precise execution of the game plan. Williams, on the other hand, was coming straight from college, where he had been encouraged to use his individual talent to overcome tough situations. Transitioning from one style to another requires mutual trust between quarterback and coordinator, exactly what didn't exist in this relationship. The good news, and perhaps the only reason for optimism, is that Williams showed real and tangible progress against Buffalo with Ben Johnson commanding the offense. After unstable weeks in training camp, where reports indicated inconsistent performances and difficulty assimilating the new system, we finally saw flashes of the quarterback we expected when drafted. Johnson has a well-established reputation for developing quarterbacks and creating systems that maximize their strengths while minimizing their weaknesses. In Detroit, he transformed Jared Goff from a league joke into an elite quarterback who nearly led the Lions to the Super Bowl. But the fundamental question that's keeping us all up at night is, has Williams truly overcome these fundamental issues of field reading, decision-making, and trust in the system? Or was what we saw against Buffalo merely an isolated glimpse against reserve defenses? Because if these executives were right about Williams' fundamental limitations, and considering our offensive line's vulnerability against Minnesota and Detroit in the early weeks, we're potentially heading straight into another disaster that could be even worse than 2024. The difference is that now the expectations are different. In 2024, Williams was a rookie learning from expected mistakes. In 2025, he's a second-year quarterback with one of the best offensive coordinators in the league. If he fails again, especially spectacularly against divisional rivals, it could permanently break his confidence and our franchise. On the other hand, if Johnson has truly unlocked the potential we all saw at USC, if Williams has truly absorbed the painful lessons of 2024, then we might be looking at a complete transformation that rivals what Daniels did in Washington. The truth is that we're at an absolute turning point. The coming weeks will determine not only our success in the 2025 season, but potentially the future of our franchise for the next 10 years. Look, Bears Nation, we just broke down 3 situations that will completely define not only our 2025 season, but potentially the future of our franchise. The brutal roster decisions with players like Amagaji and Wheeler could cost us crucial depth when we most need it, especially if injuries start occurring during the season. Our offensive line is in a desperate situation, vulnerable against the 2 most blitz-heavy defenses in the league right in the early weeks when we set the tone for the whole campaign. If we can't protect Caleb Williams adequately, we might be looking at a repeat of the 68 sacks of 2024. Only this time with even more devastating consequences. And the revelations about Williams show that the problems of 2024 were much deeper and more complex than any of us imagined. We're talking about fundamental issues of trust, system compatibility, and mental preparation that go way beyond simple technical adjustments. I want to know from you, and this is important for our discussion as a community. Do you think Chicago is making the right decisions cutting players like Amagaji early in his career. Comment below if you would keep him on the roster to continue his development, or if you trust Benedette as a starter, knowing he's going to face pass rushers like Danielle Hunter and Aiden Hutchinson in the first weeks. And about our pass protection situation, a question that could literally define our season. Do you really believe Caleb Williams has developed enough mentally to overcome a questionable offensive line? Or do you fear we're going to see the same catastrophe of sacks and bad decisions repeating? But the most important and painful question of all, after finding out that Williams and his family questioned coming to Chicago since the draft process, that he arrived already distrusting the offensive system and coordinator, do you still fully trust he can be our franchise quarterback? Or should we admit we made an epic mistake and that Jaden Daniels was indeed the right choice? These are tough questions, but we need to face them as a community of intelligent fans who truly care about the future of this franchise. This is our family here. Bears Nation. We're more than just a YouTube channel. We're the voice of everyone who bleeds navy blue and orange in this city, of everyone who wakes up every Sunday with hope in their hearts, even after decades of disappointment. If you want to keep receiving these deep and honest analyses that no other channel dares to bring, that no one else is willing to investigate and discuss, hit the subscribe button right now. Because I guarantee, and you can trust this promise, that tomorrow we'll have even more explosive news about our Chicago Bears. And with the season kickoff rapidly approaching, every piece of information, every analysis, every revelation can be the difference between a successful season and another year of suffering. You can't afford to miss what's coming for Chicago in the coming weeks. Like, if you think Ben Johnson can really solve all these complex issues we've uncovered, subscribe. If you want to be part of this family that never gives up on the Bears, even when everything seems lost, and share this video with other Bears fans who need to know these insights. Because the more united we are as a community, the better we can support our team through the ups and downs that will undoubtedly come. Until the next video, Bears Nation. Bear down always, no matter what happens.